Good afternoon and welcome all. At this time, it is my pleasure to call the 36th annual meeting of the Worcester Regional Research Bureau to order and extend a very warm welcome to all of you, including our board members, our sponsors, partners, and guests. We would also like to welcome those elected officials who are joining us today, including members of the City of Worcester, the House, and the Senate. And at this time, we would also like to offer a special acknowledgement to Senator Harriet Chandler, who recently announced her retirement at the end of her term. Senator Chandler, thank you so much for all you have done for our region over the entire duration of your tenure. We are so grateful that you have been a steadfast champion for all of our region and all of the people in our communities. We thank you. We wish you the best of good health, happiness, and success as you move forward. Thank you. As we all continue to deal with the impact of the pandemic, we are truly grateful that you are here with us virtually. Although this is not the way we had intended or hoped to have our annual meeting this year, we appreciate that you're here with us online today. The Research Bureau was founded in 1985 to collect facts, research, to engage in analysis, and offer insights and ideas for addressing local and regional public policy issues and challenges. This year, we are celebrating data and innovation. And throughout the pandemic, we have all witnessed how data has been a crucial factor in informing policymakers and business leaders to make decisions that are grounded in research. We are so delighted that today's speaker will discuss how innovative decision-making will lead us into the future, and her address entitled From Goddard to Bezos and Musk, Our Future in Space. Her presentation will really focus on a glimpse into the exciting future of space exploration, from using research and data to informing decisions that are driving cutting-edge science missions, seeking to answer profound questions such as, are we truly alone in this universe? We are also excited that this presentation by Dr. Laurie Leshin will also talk about building a spacefaring economy to benefit everyone here on planet Earth. It is essential for space innovation so that we can focus on future prosperity. We thank you, Dr. Leshin, for joining us today, and we are so very excited to hear your remarks. But before our keynote address, we are going to be starting with the business portion of our meeting today. And at this time, it is my pleasure to welcome Dee Moskos, our clerk, to give our clerk's report. Dee?
Thank you. We have on our agenda the adoption of the minutes. And because we're virtual, we have to have a special process for the approval of the minutes. A motion will be made and seconded by board members, the panelists here who are members of the board of directors. Then the motion will be called by the chair. And if any members are opposed to the adoption of the minutes, then they should go to the chat room and register that opposition. We will consider the members who do not do that to have voted in favor of the minutes. So we appreciate your cooperation on achieving this adoption through the virtual means that we have to do today. So I move, Madam Chair, to approve the minutes as submitted by the clerk and ask for a second from the panelists members.
We have a second by Dr. Haddad.
And if you can call the vote, and as I indicated earlier, if you have opposition, please register that opposition in the chat room. So If the chair will call the vote, and then we can move to the next item on the agenda.
Wonderful. So if there are any opposed, we ask you to please do so in the chat room. And if there is no opposition in the chat, then we will move to accept as indicated by Clerk Moskos. And it looks like we are all set.
Okay. The next agenda item should be then called.
Thank you very much, Dee. And now it is a pleasure to introduce Paul Kelly, who is the Regional President of Berkshire Bank, a member of our Executive Committee, and our incoming Vice Chair of our organization. Paul? And Paul Kelly will be, Paul, your mute is on, so if you can just unmute yourself so that our
I
viewers.
was sounding so good at that time too. Sorry about that. Look, again, thank you, Deborah and Paul, for leading this great organization. I look forward to hearing from Dr. Leshin on a very interesting topic, using data to drive innovation. It's great to be here today, even if it's virtually, to support the important work of the Bureau and its many contributions to enhancing the communities here in Central Mass. At Berkshire, we're committed to supporting partners like the Worcester Regional Research Bureau, who, like us, understand that our most important investment is the one we make in each other. That is only through lifting each other up that we can make a better future together. As you know, Commerce Bank was acquired by Berkshire Bank about 5 years ago. It's been a great combination of like-minded organizations. Because Berkshire understood what it means to have deep roots in the community, as part of that acquisition, we established a generous timeline for phasing out the Commerce name. In the coming weeks, we will be completing the transition, and you will see signs beginning to change from Commerce to Berkshire. All it is the same great people, same great service, just new signs. And we couldn't be more excited for our new chapter. For more than 175 years, Berkshire has been there to help its customers and communities, because we believe in empowering the success of those we serve, of those who we serve drives our success. We know that building stronger communities require a better approach to that, driving our vision to be the leading socially responsible community bank in New England and beyond. So how do we get there? For starters, we focus on data, just like the Worcester Regional Research Bureau and the theme of today's event, using data to drive innovation. For instance, we're already reinvesting in our communities at a rate nearly 70% higher than the industry average. In October, we announced an exciting new fintech partnership that will allow us to use artificial intelligence to deliver more inclusive lending options for consumers by going beyond the FICO scores and considering up to 1,600 data points when deciding creditworthiness. The result is more accessible, more affordable, credits that unlock upward mobility, ensures our neighbors and communities continue to thrive. We are also committed to lending and investing $5 billion over the next 3 years to help transform local communities. It's an increase of about 60%. We call it our best community comeback, and it focuses really on 4 key areas: fueling small businesses, community financing and philanthropy, financial access and empowerment, and funding environmental sustainability. We believe every community deserves to come back. And to tell you more, we have a short video from our CEO, Nitin Mhatre. Thank you, Deborah.
Berkshire Bank has a 175-year heritage and history of being a purpose-driven, community-dedicated bank. I'm proud to announce our best community comeback. Berkshire Bank's multi-year $5 billion commitment to helping strengthen communities and power your financial potential. Join us as together we build a better bank and help all our communities become stronger than ever before.
Thank you so much, Paul. And we also would like to extend our gratitude to all of the members of the Berkshire Bank team throughout all of the regions in which you serve. We so appreciate your continued commitment and investment in our community. And most especially, we so appreciate your generous support to the Worcester Regional Research Bureau and for being today's presenting sponsor. We are truly grateful, and we want you to know how much we appreciate your tireless service to our organization as our board member and incoming vice chair as well. Paul, thank you so very much, and to you and your whole team. Thank you. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Abraham Haddad, who is the chair of our nominating committee. And Dr. Haddad is also our former chair of our board of directors. And Abe, welcome, and we look forward to hearing the nominating committee's report.
Thank you, Deborah. It's my pleasure to present tonight's slate as seen on the presentation. All board members, please vote on the poll that will pop up on your screen. If you're unable to use the poll function, please email your vote to either Paul or Eric. Officers serving a one-year term: Fran Madigan as chair, Paul Kelly as vice chair, George Chandler as treasurer, Dee Moskos as clerk, Rick Powell as vice president of finance, Mike Mulrain for assistant clerk. For executive committee, we have Katie Crockett of Lamoureux Pagano and Rita Smith of Abbey joining for a 3-year term. We also have Deborah Penta renewing for a 3-year term. We are renewing Todd Rodman and John Spillane for a 2-year term, and myself and Eric Torgano for a 1-year term. This slide shows new members joining the board of directors: Mel Ciacciaroni, Joseph Corazzini, Joanne DeRose, Justin Dufresne, John Irwin, Megan Liddy, Dave Nordman, Stephanie Ramey, Vincent Rogo, Kimberly Rozak, Ilkan Salford, Jacqueline Skagerlin, Rita Smith, Carolyn Sempler, and Todd Tolman. We thank all of them for their leadership in the community and for joining our esteemed board. This slide shows our board renewals. Thank you for continuing your service to the Worcester Regional Research Bureau. Finally, we have those that are leaving us. Thank you to both Jan Yost, Dr. Jan Yost, and Sue Coughlin-Mailman for their service on the executive committee. We will certainly miss them, although we are happy to have Jan stay on the board of directors as well. To those rotating off the board, thank you for all of your insights and contributions. It has been an honor to work with many of you. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you so much, Abe, and I would like to join Abe and the rest of our executive committee and especially the work of the nominating committee in thanking all of the new board members for agreeing to serve for the board. We are so excited to welcome you, and we congratulate all of you. And we would also like to thank all of our existing board members and executive committee members for your service, and thank you all for those of you who are renewing, and of course those of you who are no longer renewing, to thank you for your tireless service over the years to the Bureau.
Madam Chair, we will need now a motion to accept and approve the report of Dr. Haddad.
Thank you so much, Dee. At this time, we would like to ask for a motion to approve the nominating report as presented by Dr. Abraham Haddad.
I so move.
Thank you, Dee.
We need a second.
Are there any seconds? We see Paul Kelly as a second. And if there are any people that are opposed, we would like you to please again add that to the chat. If we see no no's, then we will move to proceed with the slate as indicated.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I begin with my formal remarks, I have something very special that we would like to do right now. And that is to recognize the significant contributions of Dr. Abraham Haddad. In his tenure as a board member, as an executive committee member, Abe has been a steadfast supporter of the Bureau and a tireless advocate and champion in the community. As many of you know, Abe has just always championed the Bureau, and we could not be more grateful to Abe's tireless commitment and support. He has gone beyond the call of duty countless times, from his ongoing efforts to help the Bureau with fundraising to his endless supply of unlimited ideas that are helping the Bureau always, and to his continued advocacy in the community. Abe, it is really our pleasure tonight to honor you with our first Board Champion Award. And to mark this wonderful occasion, we are honoring you with a key, because the key personifies really the key to the success of the Bureau that you have really bestowed upon it with your tireless efforts. And we thank you, we honor you, and please accept our deepest congratulations and gratitude.
Thank you.
And so now I am truly delighted to officially welcome you all to our 36th annual meeting, and to thank you for your unwavering and meaningful support throughout the past year. It is certainly one for the history books for sure. As the pandemic has endured, the Research Bureau has been a consistent, reliable voice for informed, fact-based research and analysis of pressing community issues. The Bureau takes this year's theme to heart, using data to drive innovation. And as you can see in our annual report over the past year, we have published numerous reports and briefs on diverse and significant topics, such as the return to school after the pandemic, home ownership, school committee governance. And over the past year, the Bureau has also assembled esteemed panels to discuss educational excellence, school superintendent searches, and our work on internet accessibility was featured at a national conference. We have also continued to make an impact on shaping positive community change on free fare transportation and broadband access. As our region continues to grapple with both the short and long-term impact of the pandemic, our mission is more crucial than ever. And as an institution that is deeply devoted to examining the facts and exploring the issues, researching best practices, and translating complex topics into easily digestible formats, we will look forward to continuing our work for the betterment of the greater Worcester community and its region. I am very proud to say that we have yet again accomplished our mission. The Research Bureau is grateful for the incredible support of our community. In a very difficult time in history, all of you have shown that the Bureau continues to be a vital regional asset. You have suggested topics, aided in our research, you have given generously with your financial contributions, and you have discussed our work both publicly and privately. We want to thank all of you. We also offer our thanks and many special thanks to our sponsors of today's program in helping us to break yet another fundraising record. We thank you to our presenting sponsor, Berkshire Bank, our speaker sponsor, Avi, our leadership sponsors, Country Bank and Penta Communications, as well as our supporting sponsors, including Greenberg, Rosenblatt, Cull and Bastoli, Curlin Associates, Polar Beverages, and the UMass Chan Medical School. Special thanks as well to Flip Morgan for his personal generosity in support of the Bureau and the Worcester community. And we also want to thank all of our sponsors who have contributed at every level for today's meeting, for your commitment to keeping the Bureau strong. As this concludes my final year as chair of the board, I would like to acknowledge and offer my heartfelt thanks to my fellow board members and executive committee members. And also, I would like to say that I'm deeply grateful for all of your contributions to our many initiatives over the past year. Thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedules to keep a steadfast focus on what the Bureau needed to get through the pandemic and for helping it to get through it so seamlessly. I would also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank and celebrate our wonderful staff. Thank you for your resiliency, for your hard work, your dedication, and for all that you do every day to keep the Bureau strong and vital in our community. Thank you to Paul Matthews, to Eric Neeland, as well as researchers who have contributed to our work over the past year, including Tom Quinn and also Patrick Duffy. We want to encourage you all to review our annual report, which is posted on our website and should be in your inboxes, and you will see a complete list of tonight's sponsors. I also want to personally thank President Leshin for being here tonight. This is quite an honor that you are joining us tonight and speaking about innovation in space and for the potential that it has on our future. Thank you so much. And finally, thank you all for your support over the last 2 years. It has been both an honor and a pleasure to serve as your chair. I want to especially offer my congratulations this evening to Dr. Jan Yost on her receiving the prestigious Fairman Cowan Award and for her esteemed career in championing public health throughout our community. And I also am so excited for your new chair, Fran Madigan, who will do an outstanding job and have no doubt that the Bureau will continue to become an even more vital force in our region. I am pleased now to turn this meeting over to Paul Matthews, our Executive Director and CEO, so that he can give you an update on all the many things that the Bureau has been up to in the past year. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Deborah, both for everything you've done as such a valiant leader of the organization over 2 of the most difficult years the Bureau's faced over its 36-year history, as well as everything you do as one of our biggest in-kind contributors through the very hard work and skill of your team at Penta Communications. I would urge everyone, if you haven't already, please check out our website, which was completely redesigned, thanks to Deborah and her team, as well as our annual report. It's in the chat. It just went out about an hour before this meeting. It's up on our website. And they've done a tremendous job taking our database research and really giving it a tremendous professional flair. So I can't thank you enough for all of your many contributions to the Bureau, both as a contributor and as a leader. And I also want to thank the other people who have contributed. Deborah's already provided a long list, but I feel it necessary to point out we have many other in-kind contributors like Rick Powell at Greenberg, Rosenblatt, Cohen, Pizzoli, who work hard behind the scenes. Our financial supporters, as so many of you from business, philanthropy, and education. Our partners from the media, government, community, and other research organizations in Massachusetts and outside. Our dedicated board and executive committee members, and I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our board champion, Dr. Abraham Haddad, for his key contributions. And as Deborah noted, my friend and colleague, Eric Neeland, our Director of Programs and Operations, and all of our predecessors, some of whom are on the Zoom, for everything they've done over the 36 years to really ensure that the Bureau continues to be relevant and impactful in Greater Worcester. In terms of that relevancy and impact, I'm going to share some brief highlights. Absolutely check out the annual report, check out our website. All of these resources are available. We have continued our recurring efforts, such as the Thomas Green Public Service Awards, all the more important this year due to the pandemic. The 7th edition of our Worcester Almanac, which really provides a benchmark level of data for 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic. Our Questions for the Candidates report, which outlines some of the most pressing issues facing the city and helped inform our periodic municipal election forums, which were a huge hit, thanks to our board members and partners, Dave Norman at the TNG and Tim Murray at the Chamber, as well as the Worcester Education Collaborative and the Keynes Hall. And thanks to the TNG broadcasting on Facebook Live, as well as WCCA, we hit an unprecedented audience this year, which was tremendously important since our elections resulted in historic change for the school committee and city council in Worcester. Our Breaking Down the Budget report continued to illuminate some aspects of the pandemic that have financial import for our taxpayers and our city as a whole. We provided a detailed analysis of revenue and expenses for the city and school department, while providing key insights on the impact of the state's Student Opportunity Act, the federal government's ESSER grants, in the American Rescue Plan Act funding, which means over $140 million coming to Worcester for pandemic responses, ninth highest in Massachusetts, making us $791 per capita. The city is also poised to be able to access other funds from the state allocation. So the state is still holding $2.7 billion in reserve. However, $2.5 billion is being rolled out with an emphasis on disproportionately impacted communities like Worcester, and that will have an immediate impact in Worcester and surrounding communities. Beyond those recurring areas of focus, we took on some of the most complex and fraught issues facing the community. The housing dialogue is one that's uppermost in most people's minds. We, again, were able to collaborate with Worcester Business Journal. I want to thank board member Peter Stanton. We've had an award-winning collaboration in the past. This is no different. The Bureau's report, as part of that collaboration, focused on Worcester, Fitchburg, Leominster, Marlborough, and Framingham. And we used HDMA and census data to examine race and ethnicity, income, education, and geography, and the impacts for home ownership and renting. That illustrated and illuminated real equity impacts, including financial equity, and provided critical insights such as Worcester is the only one of those communities where owner-occupied numbers are lower than renter-occupied. And if you look at the usual benchmark of 35% of income being spent on housing, 44% of renters in Worcester are paying that level or higher, and only 25% of homeowners are. So that has a profound impact on the regional economy as well. Given the disruptions that our schools and students are feeling due to the pandemic, the Bureau really stepped up to continue to make education one of our top priorities, thanks to a collaboration with Superintendent Benenda and the Worcester Public Schools. As the Worcester Public Schools went back, first with a hybrid opening and then K-8 and then high school, we were able to access data shared by the schools and do a detailed analysis for community and policymakers' use. When we went back to hybrid, younger students were more likely to choose hybrid, and there were tremendous variances across the city. Nelson Place had 71% returning, Claremont Academy had 37%. Now, when we looked at the full reopening, that revealed similar patterns on age, schools, quadrants, and race and ethnicity. And we were able for the first time to provide online data visualization so the public and policymakers could directly access those patterns and examine them themselves. In terms of the school committee issues, aside from the education and the pandemic aspect, I think we're all aware the city faced profound change in the means of electing the school committee. Given the need for detailed analysis and education on that aspect, the Bureau provided an analysis to the community that explained the lawsuit, looked at similar suits in other cities, looked at the history of the discussion in Worcester, and provided critical context on what's happening in school committee structure in other New England cities. We have also kept to our traditional approach of convening outside experts to help inform the community on key issues and challenges. In this case, we chose to focus on education. At the beginning of the year, we convened national and statewide experts for a virtual Zoom on shedding light on learning from the pandemic and what the lessons are on the state and national level for the Worcester Public Schools. We also worked with WEC to convene a panel of statewide experts to help inform the superintendent search and illustrate the challenges and skills that are needed to really navigate the challenges of an urban district. Beyond our forums and reports, our research has continued to be utilized by policymakers in not only in Worcester, but beyond. On WRTA and free transit, our research has been focused in the Globe, on their news media, their columns, and was centered in their ideas section. We've also been very relevant for discussion with the WRTA Advisory Board. We provided detailed additional research showing that the WRTA outperformed other regional transit authorities in Massachusetts with an 82% ridership recovery when they compare to 2019. That's huge compared to the others. And fare collection and the fact that they suspended fare collection is a critical factor, leading the Federal Transit Authority to issue a report identifying the WRTA as one of the top 50 transit agencies in the country, serving a population under 1 million. So that advisory board has extended the fare suspension through the end of the year with an ensuing update to fare policy and data collection. Our broadband research has been cited by Education Week and used nationally as the centerpiece of a panel discussion and a national forum by the Governmental Research Association that the Bureau moderated. Thanks to generous support from the Worcester Together Fund, particularly the Greater Worcester Community Foundation and our board member, Tim Garvin from the United Way, the Bureau has continued working on broadband. And we really want to commend the city manager and Mayor Petty for making this a joint priority and convening a municipal broadband committee led by Assistant City Manager Eric Batista. The Bureau is honored to serve on that committee and continue providing technical assistance as the city examines these issues, given the $50 million that was just allocated by the state for broadband, as well as $65 billion that's coming in the Federal Infrastructure Act. So there are no shortage of issues for the Bureau to consider as research topics over 2022. We welcome any and all suggestions, ideas, and recommendations. Please don't hesitate to let us know. In the meantime, we will continue our ongoing focus on broadband, the WRTA, and the many important education challenges facing this community, the impacts of the pandemic, the need for expanded data and engagement on the strategic plan, the shift on the school committee, and supporting the superintendent search process. On all these issues and many others, we're going to continue working with our leadership to provide objective, data-based research on the most pressing issues facing the community. We all look forward to a better year ahead, believe me, but the Bureau will continue to do everything we can to help that happen by using data to drive innovation. Thank you very much for making all this possible, and I want to thank in particular President Leshin for joining us today and sharing her unique insights on space. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paul, and congratulations to you and the team for an outstanding year of great research and community reports and data that has really been meaningful and has shaped impact. I also just want to make a note that it's truly remarkable that the Bureau accomplishes so much with such a small team that is so robust in the work that it does. So thank you again to you, Eric, and the team for everything that you do. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Rita Smith. Rita is one of our newest members to the Executive Committee, and we're so excited to have her join our Executive Committee this year. Rita, thank you so much for joining us there. And also, Rita, in her regular role, her business role, she serves as the Director of Business and Human Resources for AbbVie. And in this role, Rita leads the site's human resources function and supports the research and development operations of AbbVie. Rita has quite an incredible history and a varied career, including time that she has spent in management at Rolls-Royce and the Ford Motor Company, among others. And we are truly honored, Rita, to welcome you here today, to welcome you to our Executive Committee, and to also to have you offer the introduction to the esteemed President, Dr. Laurie Leshin, who will be giving our keynote address tonight. Rita?
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to represent AbbVie and be able to announce and introduce our speaker of this evening. She needs no introduction, but Laurie Leshin is the 16th president and first woman to lead Worcester Polytechnical Institute, WPI. Under her leadership, WPI has been recognized by the Wall Street Journal Times Higher Education as the #1 university that best balances teaching and research, awarded the Bernard M. Gordon Prize for Innovation in Engineering and Technology Education, and received the 2020 Higher Education Excellence in Diversity HEAT Award. She joined WPI from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, where she was the Dean of the School of Science. Prior to that, she was the Senior NASA Administrator. There, she was honored with its Outstanding Leadership Medal and Distinguished Public Service Medal. An accomplished geochemist and space scientist, she earned her BS in chemistry summa cum laude at Arizona State University and an MS and PhD in geochemistry at the California Institute of Technology, which honored her in 2021 with its Distinguished Alumni Award. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Laurie Leshin.
Rita, thank you so much. It's a thrill to be here with you all. I am gonna do the Zoom share my screen thing. Let's see. And just forgive me that I'm not in slideshow mode or whatever, but I can't deal with the PowerPoint drama. So I hope this looks okay to all of you. Maybe Paul, you could give me a thumbs up. Yes, okay, awesome. Okay, so I'm so excited to get to talk to you about sort of one of my big passions. Everybody knows me as a space geek. I am most certainly a space geek. And one of the things I love about being in Worcester is that it is one of the places that sort of has space geekdom sort of in its veins. And so it'll be exciting today to get to talk about a bit of past, present, and future of space. I'm going to kind of run through a bunch of slides pretty fast, and we'll take a few, discussions with a few questions. But it's an incredible moment in space exploration. Our nation has had an amazing history that started right here in our own city. But right now is one of the most exciting times in the history of space exploration. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a flavor of the kinds of things that are happening and the kind of possibility that's there. And again, like many good stories, I will say I'm going to kind of start in the middle. Let me see if I say I'm doing that. Can I actually? There we go. All right, now. Short video clip. Oh, here's the fun thing with my background on here. That's Mars that's trying to pop into the screen. We're going to talk about the moon first, but Mars is always there beckoning right behind me. All right, short video clip.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space.
So this is a very famous speech, of course, our own JFK in his speech to Congress, May 25th, 1961, actually the 60th anniversary of an even probably more now famous speech, his Rice University speech with the "we choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard." I can't do JFK, I apologize. But the 60th anniversary of that speech is coming up this spring. And as part of the board of the JFK Presidential Library, we're planning some great celebrations of that. But this speech to me is more amazing. That was an incredible speech, and there's all kinds of fun stories about the Rice University speech. But the thing that's amazing to me about this speech is the date, May 25th, 1961. On May 5th, 1961, not even 3 weeks before this speech, or about 3 weeks before this speech, Alan Shepard became the first human, or the first American to launch into space. And did he launch into space and orbit the Earth for a while and come back down? No, he launched into space and came right back down. So when JFK made this speech to Congress, America had exactly 15 minutes of human spaceflight experience, 15 minutes. And here he is saying to the world that this is what we're going to do. We're going to send a man to the moon and return him safely to the Earth. And the audacity of that moment was incredible. But think about it. So that was now, 60 years ago. 60 years before that, a little bit more than 60 years before that, came Robert Goddard's dream. Robert Goddard's dream of sending a rocket out of Earth's atmosphere and exploring beyond our planet. He was here in Worcester when he climbed a tree and had that dream, and then became a student at WPI. And he was more than a sort of nerdy pre-rocket scientist, but he actually was very engaged and did things like wrote songs about WPI, and was a great student and a great visionary, and blew some things up in a lot of his experiments, had a lot more failure than success early on. And we've got some patched roofs to prove it here. But he was so committed to his vision that he stuck with it from the time before he was in college all the way through his career. And here he is slightly later. This is taken in 1935 in New Mexico, where he ended up, after he successfully launched his first liquid fueled rocket just a few miles down the road at his aunt's farm in Auburn. Later, he worked in New Mexico. And I'll tell you, before he had that successful launch, one of my favorite stories about him, which is going to bookend this talk, is that he published his ideas, I think in Scientific American, I want to say, about sending a rocket into space and space travel. And he was ridiculed in the New York Times, but an editorial in the New York Times basically said, Clark professor of physics should be smarter than this, and this is crazy. This can't work. We all know Newton's laws, and a rocket can't push against the vacuum of space, therefore it won't work. Can you imagine, I guess Twitter and Instagram can be pretty rough, but to have the New York Times basically call your life stream and life's work stupid was pretty intense. So he was a guy who had to overcome a lot to get where he was. And unfortunately, while the entirety of our success in space is built upon his vision and his early discoveries, and a lot of other really important early work as well, he was not the only person working in this field, but he really was the early pioneer. When we think about the Saturn V rocket here that took astronauts to the moon, when we think about the accomplishments of astronauts walking on another world, those are built on the shoulders of Robert Goddard. And unfortunately, I know he passed away in the 40s, and so he was not able to live long enough to be appreciated for his work during his lifetime. Actually, there's great stories about how his widow really helped make sure that his work was not only understood and appreciated, but actually paid for by patented and by those who were utilizing it. So good for her. She was amazing. So he is sort of the beginning of this story. Apollo and the sort of space age that we all look back to is kind of the middle of this story. And by the way, not to overlook, I mean, walking on another world is extraordinary, and we haven't done it in over 50 years. NASA is now preparing to send the first woman and the first person of color to walk on the moon, which is very exciting in the next few years. That you'll be hearing lots more about that. But not to overlook the importance of the new space age, of understanding the fragility of our own Earth. So this is a very famous picture called Earthrise, taken in 1968 by the Apollo 8 astronauts on Christmas Eve, I think, as they went around the moon, orbited the moon. They didn't land. This was a test flight before the Apollo 11 landing. Sorry, Mars keeps popping in there. I hope that's not too distracting. This was the first time we'd ever seen the big blue marble from this distance. It was the first time we'd ever really understood the fragility of our own world in the darkness and vastness of space. And, it's not a coincidence that the modern environmental movement was essentially sparked by this view of us. Every person who's ever lived is on, except the three in the capsule orbiting the moon, is on that pale blue dot. Every person who's ever lived in our solar system anyway. So all of this, was the dream, the goal that Goddard helped inspire. And then there was much more afterwards. And I'm focused right now on the NASA accomplishments. The space shuttle came next. Not to talk too much about that, but this is such a unique picture of space shuttles that I wanted to share it. It's a beautiful one, first of all. But if you look closely, you will see there are actually two space shuttles in this picture. This was taken in 2009. Right before our astronauts went up to do the final repair mission on the Hubble Space Telescope, before we retired the space shuttles. And at that time, there was a concern about maybe needing to send up a rescue mission. So that was the only time they actually had two shuttles on the pad. And so that's what this is a picture of. You don't get to see that one very often. So the shuttle was an amazing workhorse, helped us build this extraordinary place in space where 7 humans are right now aboard the space station. This is the International Space Station with partners from across the world. An incredible feat of engineering, about the size of a large 6-bedroom, 2-bath house on the inside. It's huge on the inside, actually. And obviously you can see the massive size of the solar arrays that power it. And the amazing thing is there are pieces of the space station that were manufactured in far-flung places on the Earth that never saw each other until they were in space, and then they had to fit together perfectly. This is the kind of manufacturing, engineering challenges that we have to solve if we want to live and work in space. And that's really what the ISS, the International Space Station, is all about. It's about living and working in space. This place has been continuously occupied since 2000, since November of 2000. So for over 20 years, we've had people continuously living and working on this amazing station, doing things like understanding how to do in-space manufacturing, how to think about, growing protein crystals and doing other great science in microgravity environments, but mostly learning how to live and work for long periods of time in space. And if we're going to get more people off this planet, if we're going to be moving out into the solar system, if we're going to be moving more and more of our economy off Earth, we need to learn basic steps about how to do these things. And that's really what the ISS is all about. By the way, aside from the moon, the ISS is the brightest thing in the sky. So you can actually see it. There's a great app or a website if you don't have it, called Spot the Station. Spot the Station. If you Google that, you will find information about, and you put in where you are, you will find when's the next time ISS is flying over. And I guarantee you, if you go outside right at that time, be slightly patient because the time is probably right when it starts coming up over the horizon. You will see it, and it is bright. It's incredible. Usually it's right around just after sunset or before sunrise are the most visible ones, because you get the glint of the sun still off the solar arrays. So definitely recommend you go to Spot the Station. And these are all incredible NASA and international government space organization accomplishments, but there's so much more to the space ecosystem, and especially these days. It's actually been true for a long time, but now the private parts of the space ecosystem are really emerging. And one of the things that's helping that is having destinations like the space station. So when I was at NASA, one of the things we got going was commercial launch providers to provide both cargo and crew to the space station. Now we're seeing SpaceX launching crews up to the space station. That was a program we started when I was serving at NASA. And it's just great to get to see non-governmental providers becoming more and more involved in our space ecosystem. But actually, and this, I apologize for the quality of this, I stole it from the Space Foundation, but you can see the whole global space economy financially in this pie chart. NASA is about half of the purple wedge, about 25 billion a year. So we all think like NASA's got to be it, right? Or NASA's like the biggest piece. It's not the biggest piece. First of all, there are other, in the US and in other countries, there are other space budgets. So those are the two smaller wedges there. But the commercial satellite infrastructure is huge and growing. Since 2005, this number, the $447 billion a year that's spent in the space economy, has grown 176%. And it is just really off the charts in terms of growth. And you can see also growth if you look at launches. In 2011, so just over 10 years ago, we launched 84 times. In 2021, 144 rockets were launched globally. This space economy is growing like crazy. Here's one of the big reasons. Our friend Elon, who used to have to come pitch to me when I was at NASA, when he was trying to get these commercial contracts, which he's done really incredible work. He's an amazing visionary in this future space economy and private space world. This is him with a Falcon 9 rocket. Not fully built yet, you can see, but having people like him, like Jeff Bezos, like Richard Branson, excited about the space business is great for the visibility of the space economy. And he has truly been doing extraordinary work, not only on government, with government support, like what he's gotten from NASA. And he will say, he will give NASA a ton of credit for his success, but also with a ton of private customers now. And they launch robotic satellites, things into low Earth orbit. And we can talk about maybe a little later about broadband and his Starlink satellite systems, but they're also launching people. And I hope that people paid attention this past year to this wonderful mission. The launch is on the left there. That's a time-lapse picture of the launch. This was the first ever fully private space flight crew. None of these people are NASA selected astronauts or astronauts from Russia or China or Japan or Europe or Canada. They're all US citizens who flew in space on a 3-day mission called Inspiration 4. The tallest gentleman there was responsible for purchasing the flight and then selecting a crew to go with him. The other woman in the middle, Sam Proctor, is a friend, and she was the pilot. Amazing first African-American woman to be pilot of a spacecraft. She's a superstar. She's also a geology professor in Arizona. So was a student in my old department at ASU and a truly inspirational leader. And the young woman on the right side of the slide is a childhood cancer survivor and a medical worker at St. Jude. And so the whole mission was flown as a fundraiser for St. Jude. I don't know, Paul, maybe the Research Bureau needs to fly a mission as a great way to get folks engaged. But this was incredible. They were up in orbit in a capsule for 3 days, a little bit like maybe John Glenn's flight or something like that. He didn't orbit quite that long, but so not very long up there. They didn't talk with the space station or anything else, but they were up there for 3 days and engaged the world. What an incredible thing. And this could never have happened before. Truly, truly amazing. So that's one. You got the SpaceX stuff. So SpaceX is launching with their Dragon capsule, launching people into orbit to go to the space station, but also privately to just orbit the planet. You'll be hearing a lot more, I think, about private destinations for tourists and other and scientists who want to go into experiments in space. Interestingly, this is Bezos. So Bezos himself, Elon hasn't flown yet, but Jeff Bezos has. A few months ago, he flew on the Blue Origin rocket called the New Shepard. So named for Alan Shepard. And the rocket does something quite similar to what Alan Shepard did, which is it goes up and it comes right back down. It does cross into space. It goes above 100 kilometers, about 325,000 feet officially into space, but doesn't stay there very long and not going fast enough to go all the way into orbit, but then comes right back down. So it's a pretty good way if you want to get that little bit, you get about 3 or 4 minutes of weightlessness there at the top of the arc. Big windows. I've sat in their mock-up capsule, big windows where you can look out. And so here was Jeff Bezos, and the woman next to him is Wally Funk, who's 82 years old and who was one of the women who they trained alongside the Apollo astronauts, but who never got to fly. And so this was her first ever space flight. And it's classic when they cut to them when they were flying. They cut to them, how's it going, Jeff Bezos? And you hear her in the background going, woohoo! It was awesome. She's amazing. So he did that. And of course, I hope you all saw that, and this is a terrible picture, sorry, that Captain Kirk himself, because he's crying. That's why it's a terrible picture, actually. Captain 90-year-old William Shatner flew on the next one of these rockets just a couple of months ago. And so Bezos was there to greet him when he came down. He didn't go up with him. But record for the oldest person to fly in space, which Wally had just broken as an 82-year-old, then William Shatner shattered that. And he was just overcome with emotion coming down saying, everyone should see this. And here's the beauty. Everyone can now. It's going to start to be accessible for many, many, many more of us. And I can't imagine anything more exciting. Of course, people always ask me, oh, would you be an astronaut? Would you want to go to space? And I would be throwing up the entire time. So I don't think, but you know what? I got to tell you, honestly, when I watched Shatner go, it was the first time I thought, I could do that. I could stand it for 15 minutes. I could do it. And boy, that would be quite a ride. So the commercial space industry of taking more people to space than has ever been possible before, watch, the next few years is just going to go crazy. It's going to be massively huge, very exciting. But the commercial space sector is doing more than sending tourists to space. It's doing more than sending a lot of people to space. And that's really important, by the way. But they're doing other fascinating things. This is a great company called Planet. Their space, one of their little spacecraft is up there in the left corner. It's about the size of a shoebox. It's not very big. And they launch them, I don't know, 40, 80 at a time. They launch them all together on one rocket and then they all pop out. And, you know, NASA flies, other countries fly very large Earth observing missions, which do great science, which are teaching us about how our planet's changing, observing that happening, helping us understand the underlying physics. The data that comes out of those is incredible. And these little satellites, they're called doves. They call them doves, like a flock of doves, are able to kind of blanket the Earth with images every day. They're watching the entire planet every day, not like spying, watching, but looking at the Earth and watching it change. And this is just a great example. This is the Milne ice shelf in very northern Canada. It was actually the last ice shelf in Canada until July of 2000. This is taken on July 26th, and this is taken on July 31st of 2020. In 2 days, the last ice shelf in Canada collapsed. And these guys captured it because, again, they're looking at the Earth in a different way, very time domain, looking at change that's happening much more rapidly, perhaps, than we had been previously able to observe because, well, there's a lot of reasons. I won't go into all the reasons, but very, very exciting to have this kind of coverage. You know, if you go on Planet's website, you can find pictures of Americans pulling out of Kabul. And you can see how that changed over the days as that was evolving. There's a lot of really interesting business applications. They sell their imagery to all kinds of businesses, insurance, agriculture, and then of course for science, it's fantastic. So this part of the commercial space sector is also booming. As I start winding down, I want to come back to the science and the data there because there are just extraordinary discoveries taking place and even bigger things to come. So as this commercial space sector is really flourishing near Earth, the NASA continues to drive the boundaries, the frontiers of exploration. This is Perseverance rover, which landed on Mars last February. And if you look closely in the upper middle there, you can just see the little Ingenuity helicopter, the first ever drone on another world, which is still going somehow amazingly. The engineers at JPL are truly extraordinary. So this rover, which is very much like the Curiosity rover that landed in 2012, which I served on the science team for all the way back from the beginning. This rover is cruising around this incredibly interesting part of Mars and actually drilling into rocks and collecting samples that a future mission will go and pick up and bring back to Earth where they can be analyzed in the world's best labs. And the reason we want to do that is that we want to understand what kind of habitable environments have existed on Mars and whether or not life could have gotten started there. There's some recent data that suggests that Mars had liquid water for a lot longer than we originally thought and might have been a great habitable place. We want to answer that question, are we alone in the universe? And Mars is our best nearby neighbor to make that exploration. So look, this is a multi-billion-dollar mission. First of all, I should say, how do we take this picture? It's a selfie because we're cool like that. And our rovers take selfies. So there's a robotic arm on this spacecraft, which has a camera on it. And so they put the arm out and the arm takes the picture. It's probably actually a bunch of pictures, which then get, knitted together. And like when you take a selfie, you can't see your arm in your own selfie picture, right? So you can't see the arm in the picture, but this is her selfie. Well, I shouldn't give her a gender. I think she's probably a girl, but that's just me. So that's an incredible, just one of the incredible missions coming out of NASA right now. And then the other, which has just been all over the news these past few weeks, is the James Webb Space Telescope. This is an artist rendering because where it is, it's very, very dark and cold. We don't have a good picture of it in space, but this is the most advanced space telescope ever built, ever flown, ever made. And it just entered a couple of days ago. It successfully entered its final orbit. It successfully deployed, did hundreds and hundreds of deployments that it had to do. It's unlike the Hubble, so first of all, it's 3 times bigger than the Hubble telescope. It doesn't look like a telescope really. It's got that big mirror, but where's the tube? So it's an infrared telescope. And so the idea is that these sheets of mylar that you see, the sun is towards the back of them, and they shade the telescope part to keep it really, really cold. And so it's big and it looks into the universe in the infrared. So it needs to be very, very cold, no heat. Otherwise you get a lot of background noise. So it is going to be able to look back in time by looking at the very earliest stars and galaxies, which have, because they're moving away from us, their light has shifted into the infrared. And so this will allow us to understand the birth of the very first stars. There is going to be such incredible science coming from this just amazing. And that telescope itself is about 20 feet across, 6 meters. So all of us are sleeping much easier, knowing that all the deployments are done and it's in its orbit. These are tough things. A robotic spacecraft, we can't be out there to fix it. There's no telescope repair shop out there 1 million miles from Earth where this telescope is. And we're just so thrilled that this telescope's science is just about to begin. So this is, I'm wrapping up here. We've got amazing science. We've got amazing commerce happening in near Earth orbit. Again, hundreds of billions of dollars per year in the space industry and growing at a good clip. But I think the interesting thing is to think about the real longer term future. And I totally stole this great pic of Bezos and Musk from Vox magazine. Elon's very focused on getting people to Mars and creating sustainable settlements off planet. Bezos is very focused on moving heavy industry off Earth. And they both have a really interesting vision of where we might go in the future, but a lot of it is about preserving the Earth, right? A lot of it is about making sure that Earth is a habitable place for the long run. But the interesting thing is, in order to do that, in order to truly have thousands, millions of people, huge, heavy industries living and working off planet, we've got to build a different kind of space industry. We've got, right now, our space industry serves us here on Earth, which is good. We need to be served here on Earth, that's good. But it's very interesting to think, as you think future opportunities, how are we going to serve those people living off Earth? There's a whole new set of opportunities there in the private space sector. And they call this sort of space for Earth or space for space. And think about it, as hundreds more people are in space, what are they going to be doing while they're there? Where are they going to be, living and working? How is that all going to happen? And so these folks, like the new space entrepreneurs, are really thinking, they're building piece by piece ways for us to get to the point of having a totally different kind of space economy. And we're right at that inflection point. And so it's a very exciting time to be thinking about the future of space and the space economy. And again, this guy, our hometown hero, is really behind so much of it. He dreamed it and it became a reality. And I think that he would be amazed at what is happening in space today. And as I close out, I just want to say one more thing. On the day that the Apollo 11 astronauts launched to the moon, so they walked on the moon on July 20th, 1969, right? July 17th was the day after they launched. The Times printed a retraction to their earlier dissing of Robert Goddard, saying that, and here it is, on January 13th, 2020, they dismissed the notion that a rocket could function in the vacuum of space. And then I highlighted the important part. Further investigation and experimentation have confirmed that the findings of Isaac Newton in the 17th century and it is now definitely established that a rocket can function in a vacuum as well as in the atmosphere. The Times regrets the error. I'm sure Robert Goddard would appreciate that. I hope he appreciates that we're still talking about and appreciating him today. So great time in the history and future of space exploration, and glad to be able to talk with you about it today.
Dr. Leshin, thank you so much for such a fascinating presentation that really brings us back in history in Worcester all the way to innovation of what is happening now, but also what's going to be happening in our future. It's just so exciting, and it makes us all yearn for more. We had some wonderful comments in our chat about how amazing this was and how people were just so excited about it. So we really want to thank you very much for this presentation tonight. And we have 3 questions that are going to be delivered by our lead sponsors. The first question is from Rita Smith. And so I would like to just welcome Rita back so that she could ask her question. And then after Rita, we're going to navigate to Paul Kelly. And then we are going to move to Jess McCary, who is from another one of our sponsors, Country Bank. So first, let's move over to Rita. And Rita, fire away.
Thank you, Deborah. Dr. Leshin, what a wonderful presentation. I learned so much, and I have to admit, you probably have me geeking out a little bit about the space science. So thank you for that. So my question is, what can space science do to solve global problems like climate change? And I know that's a big question, but I'd love to hear your perspectives.
No, it's such a great question. I mean, it's such a huge focus. You know, we all think about Mars, and of course, I didn't help by mostly talking about deep space activity that NASA and other agencies do, but know that they are all about Earth science as well. And you know, I think there's a famous story about somebody in Congress once during a hearing saying, "Why do we need Earth science satellites? I've got the Weather Channel." Like, where do you think the Weather Channel gets all of that information and all of that data and all of those predictions? Our ability to now have 10-day weather predictions. Now, I will say they're not always great, but our ability to have longer term predictions of weather and longer term predictions of climate change are due to lots of scientists, but a lot of that data is coming from our space science mission, whether it's looking at the effects of atmospheric aerosols, dust and soot and the ozone layer in the atmosphere, whether it's looking at the shifting water resources on our planet. NASA is, and other agencies are, other international space agencies are keeping an eye on our changing planet. They can see changes to life in the oceans. They can see changing growing seasons. Like, there are so many different ways that our planet is reacting and responding to the changes it's going through. And by watching those changes over time, we become better at understanding the underlying physics, what's causing that, and then therefore to be able to predict future impacts, which of course is a big part of the challenge. And also, as we think about adaptation, mitigation, how do you think about what strategies are the best? How do you model that and predict it? Well, we build upon the data that we have to predict what the future will be like. And it's the models are incredibly complex. And the scientists, I can tell you, I used to oversee Earth science at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, where many of the Earth science missions, including those for the Weather Service and such, are built and managed. You will never meet a more dedicated group of scientists than NASA scientists trying to help us understand the Earth.
Thank you so much.
On their Mars. Yeah.
Thank you, Rita, and thank you, Dr. Leshin. And now I'd like to move to Paul Kelly, who has a question. Paul?
Sure. Dr. Leshin, thank you very much for the presentation. I think you're going to have more requests to have people talk about space and the commercialization of space. So this is just the beginning. In Worcester, broadband access has been an ongoing discussion, especially through the pandemic. What role can space science play in improving access?
Yeah, it's a great question. That's internet access via satellite is a huge and booming field right now. So communication satellites, I mean, if you think about it, going all the way back to Sputnik, the very first satellite, what did it do? It was beeping. That's sort of like it was the first communication satellite, right? And through time, sending data through space has been a really important part of the sort of space ecosystem. But these days, a lot of our sort of satellite internet kind of providers use what's called geostationary orbits. So they send us a big satellite way out, 22,000 miles from Earth, and it sort of orbits at the same speed that Earth spins. So it sort of stays over one part of the Earth. And that works well, but you got to have a big satellite, and you got to, you're very far away. So you got to have a really powerful signal. What's been such an innovation recently are smaller satellites, but those need to be closer to Earth. And so as you think about, so Elon, this is something that Elon's working on. He's calling it Starlink, where they have lots of much smaller satellites orbiting much lower, about say 300 miles above Earth. So 22,000 miles versus 300 miles. So very close to say where the space station orbits or the Hubble Space Telescope orbits. But in order to get the coverage you need from that close to the Earth, you need a lot of satellites. So there will be thousands and thousands and thousands of satellites in the Starlink constellation. They've launched a few thousand already. A lot of the SpaceX launches you see these days are throwing those satellites up there. I'll tell you, it's a really interesting model. It's also causing a few challenges. Astronomers are seeing them streaking across the sky as they're trying to look to the sky, so they're not super happy. And the worry of orbital debris is becoming a significant one. There's a lot of stuff up there in space. I think I wrote it down. I don't have this number off the top of my head, but there's been something like a total of 12,500 satellites launched ever in the history of ever since as of January, as of this month. That's a lot of stuff out there in space. Most of them have stayed pretty close to home here. And the worry about sort of space traffic management, like air traffic management, space traffic management is becoming a significant concern. And especially as adversaries in China and Russia are doing things like testing anti-satellite technology and creating huge debris fields that do things like put our astronauts on the space station at real risk. So this is going to be also something that happens in the next wave of space. Is space traffic management, space debris management are going to be important. But stay tuned. These very large satellite constellations in near Earth orbit to do broadband, I think have real potential to address broadband in places that it's hard, frankly, to get the ground-based infrastructure laid.
Excellent. Appreciate it.
And too long. Sorry.
Good. Sweet.
It's just all so fascinating. And Paul, thank you for that excellent question. And again, Dr. Leshin, thank you so much. We have one more question from one of our lead sponsors, and I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Jess McCary. Jess is the first Vice President of Commercial Lending and Eastern Market Team Lead of Country Bank. And again, she's with our third lead sponsor tonight. Jess, if you want to unmute and ask your question, that would be terrific. Thank you very much.
Yes. First, I'd like to just say thank you. I think it's a good thing I didn't hear you speak when I was a young girl, because I think I would be a space geek and not a banker. So it's
never too late.
No, it's so interesting. It's just, thank you so much. It was just wonderful, and really, really, just really impactful. So thank you. I would like to know a little bit more about what you see as the role of Central Mass. What role do we play in space, right? And, what could our region do to sort of better support the efforts?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, actually. And I would love for our region to think more about it, because we do have such a history, and I do feel like there's ethos here that we should think about. There are several small space companies here in Worcester. My husband actually runs one, and there are a couple of others as well that are starting to get some attention, which is exciting. As you think about this future space economy, one of the biggest growth areas is going to be sort of the sheer number of satellites, also in space work around manufacturing. And Worcester has such a history in manufacturing sector. I think thinking about space manufacturing might be an interesting place for Worcester's history and its future to intersect. I think you've got WPI right here. We have a brand, so we've forever had aerospace engineering majors, but we just have had so many in recent years, and we're so focused on it that we have now split it apart from mechanical engineering and made it its own department. So we have a Department of Aerospace Engineering at WPI for the first time. So the talent stream is here. We are training great aerospace engineers right here in Worcester. And I think we should be thinking about how to bring some of that industry in. Massachusetts is a decent but not huge player in the space world. Robotics is another big effort in the space business. And so robotics is a place that Massachusetts is looking to really grow, and not only in things like for production and manufacturing, but obviously you've got Amazon Robotics and other things here, but the space connection with robotics could be significant. There's a great little robotics company in California called Honeybee Robotics that just yesterday was reported was acquired by Blue Origin. So there's a lot of activity happening in this space, and a lot of potential connections between organizations that could help bring it to life.
Great. Thank you so much once again, President Leshin, for that insightful, informative, and amazing presentation, and for joining us tonight and making this such a special evening. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who's here tonight to hear it. Before we move on to one important thing that I need to do before I leave, I just want to make sure that we've closed the voting for the nominations. So Dee, I'm officially going to close the votes. We have had no no's in our chats this evening, so we are officially approved the nominations for the new board. So just to make sure that we get that technicality done before we move forward. And so now my very last duty as chair is something that I'm very excited for, and that is to officially pass the torch to a friend and colleague, Fran Madigan, who will now take the reins as chair of the Research Bureau. Fran, the Bureau is going to be in great hands, and we're so excited that you are going to be coming in as our new chairman. Thank you so much for all you do and for stepping up for this commitment. Thank you all very much, and have a great evening.
Hey, thank you, Deborah, and thank you, President Leshin, for a very interesting and informative presentation. We can only imagine what the next 50 years is going to bring us in space exploration and the new word you said, space industry. It's exciting. Now, if you would, would you just please bear with me for the last two final agenda items. First, as the new chairperson, on behalf of the Board of Directors, the Executive Committee, and the staff, I want to thank Deborah. I'm going to use Deborah Penta for her outstanding contributions to the Bureau over the past 2+ years. And I did say 2+ years. We extended a little bit. COVID pushed it out a little bit. So it's been about 2+ years. As we all know, it has not been business as usual. However, Deborah's leadership has enabled the board to thrive during her tenure as chairperson. Deborah, you are a consummate leader, and I have greatly enjoyed working with you. You have certainly set the bar at a very high level. Now, we are proud to present Deborah with an official Worcester Regional Research Bureau chair. Now, we're not in person, so you can't see the chair, but I know that the chair was delivered to Deborah yesterday. And Deborah, this is our gift for your thoughtful and collaborative leadership over the past 2+ years.
Thank you so much.
Okay, now to our last agenda item. It's my honor to present the Fairman Cowan Municipal Leadership Award. The Fairman Cowan Award was established to recognize those who, like Fairman, committed their time and intellect to improve Worcester. The Fairman C. Cowan Award is presented to a person of remarkable merit, one who leads with purpose and passion, and has made significant contribution to his or her community. Our past recipients have included Bob Moylan, Dan Morgado, Flip and Gail Morgan, and Brian Thompson. Adding to this esteemed group, Jan Yost has been a pillar in the community for over 2 decades, leading the Health Foundation of Central Massachusetts. With the recent announcement of her retirement coinciding with the end of her term on the Bureau's Executive Committee, there's no better time to recognize all she's done for Central Massachusetts. We are virtually presenting Jan with a plaque that reads,
I actually have it here.
The Worcester Regional Research Bureau is pleased to present its Fairman C. Cowan Municipal Leadership to Dr. Jan Yost. Impact, many strive for it, few truly achieve it. Jan Yost's storied career has been dedicated to her community. Her impact in Central Mass is felt by all. She has been a staunch advocate for mental health and access to dental services. She has fought to reduce hunger and homelessness, and she has aided in prisoner reentry and has been a very active voice on fare-free transportation. The Research Bureau has benefited from her wise counsel and passion. Jan embodies the ideals of this award, a true advocate and a true leader in our community. In honor of her excellence and accomplishments, the Research Bureau presents this award on the 27th day of January in the year 2022. I'd also like to note that Jan is the first woman to unilaterally be presented with this award. We are truly grateful for her contributions, not only to the Research Bureau, but to the greater Worcester community. Thank you, Jan. Please feel free to share a few words if you would like.
Thank you, Fran, for your very kind words and the handsome plaque. It's a special honor to receive this award named for such a highly revered gentleman and devoted civic leader, and granted by a highly regarded research bureau with its mission of conducting independent, nonpartisan research and analysis of public issues to promote good governance and inform public debate and decision-making in Worcester and the surrounding municipalities. What do the following municipalities have in common? Nuremberg, Germany, Fayetteville, North Carolina, Albany, Oregon, Tacoma, Washington, Monterey, California, Bonn, Germany, Hanau, Germany, Clarksville, Tennessee, and Enterprise, Alabama. An Army brat, these represent the 9 places I lived the first 20 years of my life. And then I went off to college in Pensacola, Florida, and graduate school in Athens, Georgia. Having completed my coursework for a doctorate at the University of Georgia, I was very fortunate to win a faculty position nearby at the University of South Carolina Spartanburg campus, where I felt I could commute and finish my dissertation while working. After I had lived in Spartanburg for about 4 years, I began to feel for the first time what it's like to have a hometown, a sense of place and community. And I vowed I would stay there forever and remain actively involved in my community. But after 24 years in Spartanburg, I was heavily and persistently recruited by the founders of the Health Foundation of Central Massachusetts to come to Worcester in 1999 and help them launch this foundation. I had done similar work in Spartanburg as the founding CEO of another health conversion foundation. By my 3rd interview and my 2nd visit to Worcester, I had come to better understand and appreciate this commonwealth with its progressive culture, one that highly values education, that supports research to inform public decision-making, and that readily advocates for public policies to improve the quality of life for all. This was a place I wanted to be. I was skeptical about one thing, however, and asked if a Southerner would be received well in the community. The foundation board assured me that I would be welcomed. They were right. Worcester is indeed a welcoming city, as evidenced by including me in its civic life and by this award. Although I still frequently get the question, "Where are you from?" which you can imagine with my background, I have difficulty answering briefly. So when I'm feeling a little bit feisty, I simply respond, South Worcester. Yes, Worcester sure feels like my hometown, and I'm grateful to this community for allowing me to serve here and for your collaboration on so many projects and efforts over the years. This award means the world to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan, and congratulations, well deserved. It's been a pleasure working with you on the Bureau Executive Committee. You will certainly be missed. To close out the meeting, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. And again, as I want to echo comments from Paul and from Deborah, a particular thank you to our generous sponsors who made this program possible. Your support allows us to continue our great work, and you are vital partners in our mission. I also want to particularly thank President Leshin for her unique insights today. I think we all learned a lot of things we thought we know. We have a lot more to learn. It will certainly be interesting. This year's annual meeting has been an incredible celebration of the Bureau's 36 years, despite the enduring challenges presented by COVID-19. Our work continues to be crucial as we all grapple with multiple public policy issues. Rest assured that the Worcester Regional Research Bureau is poised for success as we start a new year. But we are only as effective as a community that embraces our work. So thank you to all of today's attendees, Bureau supporters and partners, our board of directors and the staff. We look forward to continue our work with all of you. And we promise that we will hold our 2022 meeting in 2022 and cross fingers that it will be in person. Everyone, please have a great evening and thank you for joining us.